you totally are worthy of everything. And when you are in unworthiness, like you're blocking all the blessings that are waiting to flow into you.
First of all, can you give me your name?
Yes, my name is Angelica Garcia.
Love it. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well today. I'm really excited to be sharing this time and space with you because it's been 22 years that I think we calculated.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's a long time. What does success mean to you personally?
Wow, that's a very good question because my definition of success has transformed over time. If you were to ask me that question pre-pandemic, I would have said having a good paying job, living on my own, and just having enough money to live freely and do what I want. And so answering that question now, it's living the life that I am now, like it's broken that definition of success because now what I value and what I think success is having peace within and in my environment around me, and really truly being happy and content with whatever life brings you. Life is going to bring you curveballs, so it's just being able to be in a space of going with the flow so you're able to live a more peaceful existence. And money is definitely not a factor in happiness or success because happiness, health, and I would say like peace of mind within, in my mind and within would be my definition of success.
On your path to your success, what would you say are some challenges that you faced with either, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, negative thoughts, anything of that sort?
I would say a sense of belonging has been something that I've had to overcome. Going to elementary school, I went to a very diverse elementary school where you had a variety of different races. You had Latino students, you had African American students, you had Caucasian students, Asian students. And so when I got to 6th grade to 12th grade, I went to a school that was for first generation college students. So it was predominantly Latino. And so in that space, I was never Mexican enough because Spanish was not my first language. So I always felt like I didn't belong completely because I didn't resonate with the stories of having my parents immigrate to a new country, which is here in the United States. My parents were born here. And so I've always felt like an outcast, and it's also been verbally said to me that, I'm not Mexican. I'm not Mexican enough. And so I held on to that narrative up until I got to college, because in college it was the complete opposite. I went to predominantly Caucasian school. And so in that environment, I was the token immigrant or Latino student. And so I had to learn and navigate between these two roles and really think what is my identity? Is this a reflection of my worthiness? Am I not worthy enough or good enough to be in either of those spaces? So I always felt in limbo of trying to walk this fine tightrope of maybe acting a certain way or talking a certain way in different scenarios. So being my authentic self, I never really felt like I could express that because I wasn't fully welcomed or comfortable in either of those spaces. So luckily in college, there was a center called Chicano Latino Student Affairs, and they were there for the purpose of helping Latino students transition into college. Getting comfortable with the environment, how to navigate the waters, how to have a great support system. So I would say that they were really pivotal in my getting comfortable with being okay with that. And I also did research on that for my senior thesis. So I came at it from an approach, a mental approach, in figuring out ethnic identity formation and what it means and what the experiences have been like for first gen, second gen, third gen students. So I kind of found I guess some peace in that because I'm okay, I'm not alone. There are other people who feel this way too. And so just knowing that I wasn't alone in that, I might not have found those people that are like me, but just being in the world and knowing that it's okay and living who I am, that has been a really huge process. And I feel like I'm just getting there now and I'm still exploring it. But I would say for me, that has been the most challenging thing that's coming to mind of my sense of belonging. And then that of course translate into the workplace because after you go to college, you're gonna go to work. And then, what does that mean for family dynamics too? Being successful, being the first in your family to graduate from college, it's a lot of pressure to be able to succeed and keep on going. Even though I have a very loving and very supportive family, I know that They would not be disappointed in anything that I end up doing. They're always my biggest cheerleaders. I just always held on to that eternally, that I can't mess up. Like, I have to like get good grades. Like, I have to be perfect. So it was just a lot of self-imposed pressure that I've lived my life like up until about 2 years ago. So yeah.
So for the let's go back to the 2 years ago, right? You gave me there's been two definitions to success, right? So let's discuss on what made the shift, right? So like what made the shift from one point of view of success to another?
Yeah.
Your new refound definition of success.
Yeah. I have to give that credit to my mentor, who I met in high school. Her name is Stephanie Chick. She is absolutely amazing. She was a life coach. She's a master teacher of love. And she really did teach me how to love myself at the core of it. And so that process during COVID, she worked with me every single day and helped me sort of shed the old version of myself and what wasn't serving me. And so what were the things that were enslaving me? What thoughts was I holding on to that weren't true, but I was holding on to so tightly that I couldn't see that there was actually a way out of that? So working with her one-on-one, and she helped me silence those voices in my head that I've always had, and helped me detach from things that I was holding on to. So that perfectionism that I've always operated from. Like, one of the things that I did during COVID was I came back to my childhood room and I went through all like the binders and the folders and the notebooks that I was holding on to, because that was what I've done. Like, that was my heart and soul. This was my hard work. These were my A's. And I threw them all out in the recycling bin. And it was literally the most liberating and freeing feeling I have ever felt, besides traveling, because that's really fun. But I got to just let all that go. I was carrying all that baggage with me, my successes, like of being, ASB president, 4.0 student. I don't know, I was involved in like so many different clubs, presidents of different clubs. Like, I just threw all of that away. And I cannot tell you like how that felt. And so I was like in the recycling bin, like stomping on my stuff. And it's just like, okay, like, it was symbolic of I don't have to carry that perfectionism anymore. And so that really opened the door to me exploring, well, what is success? Like, what really is going to put my mind at ease? And it's just going through different practices and actually calling out like, oh, you have that voice in your head, like, oh, like, you have to do more. Like, no, you don't have to do more. You have to be more of who you are. And so figuring out what the heck that even meant. And if you like think about it, like, it sounds simple, but like, no, coming back to figuring out who you are minus the pressure that you get from society, minus social media, minus all the noise and clutter. Once you move all of that away, you're stuck and left with yourself. So I had to sit with myself for 2 years, and even now, and figuring out, what do I need to also throw away? And it was the questions of like, am I worthy enough? Am I good enough? And calling those voices out, because when you give attention to them and call them out, you don't give them power. Like, you're taking that power away from those voices. And so it's a conscious practice and effort to be like, oh, like, that's not me. Like, that's just that little voice in my head that's telling me I can't do this, or you shouldn't be that. Or, like, you should go back and get a job, like, you lost your job, like, go back and get another one. When internally I'm like, no, like, that's not my next move. So really developing trust with that inner voice that's there to help you move forward instead of move back. So the way peace is bringing peace is this voice bringing me peace or bringing me pain? Which direction do I want to go? Like, no, I want to follow peace. So it's an active choice. It's an active practice. It's being active and aware of like deciphering who's talking. And so my mentor would ask me, who's doing the talking? Is it your ego? Is it that like voice? What's really inside? That's that vulnerable place, that scary place that you might not want to go to. And so that's also very key, is being vulnerable with yourself and authentic and giving voice to what you really want. Letting those fears out, like, it's very cleansing. I've cried so many times on the phone with her. And it's been a process. It's definitely not overnight, and that definition has been developed and it's been, in the works. I would say I'm thinking back to a time I went to Guatemala when I was a freshman in college. I went to go help teach math, and we built the foundation of a new school in this small village. And I lived in a household with the Escobar family, and they had dirt floors, tin roofs, chickens everywhere. And they were literally, and so this is completely different to how we live here in the United States, right? And they were literally the most happiest, loving, like just appreciative and humble people that I've ever met. And they didn't have anything compared, material things. And so that has always stuck with me, is that like material things or stuff in the outside world that we have here aren't really what bring you happiness. They're not really what bring you peace or what bring you success. That might be a byproduct. You might have those things after you reach your success. But for me, no, like that happiness, family, community, like that's all I really need. And it's just interesting how my journey has brought me back home, because I haven't lived at home for 10 years. And I came back once that 10 years ended, because I also always associated coming home, like equating that to like failing and like not like going to, climbing, living in different cities, doing different jobs. And so coming home, I felt like was always my last option. It wasn't my first choice, because I made that equal to failing, but it's quite the opposite. It's where I wanted to be.
What are other ways that you overcome those negative voices, that imposter syndrome that like comes into your head when you're working towards success? You mentioned kind of like the release was one. Like, do you have other things that you've done to help you overcome that?
I would say like be around people who celebrate you rather than bring you down. So being more conscious of boundaries has played into that. And I think it's like choosing what activities you do. I like to spend time with my family. I like being in the outdoors. And so I think it's more of doing things that make you more of you. And the way you figure that out is like you really have to listen to what I call like your GPS, like your internal GPS, which is like your truth, like what's really inside of you minus what's on the outside world. And so like I would say for the G, it's like what is like your gut feeling, like what is like what are you gauging like from like what you're wanting to really have in this life, in this moment, a decision that you're facing, like how is your body reacting? And that's something my mentor also taught me, was like your body talks to you. So if like you're in pain, or like if you're getting headaches at work like I was, like is that really where you're supposed to be? Is this really what you're supposed to be doing? What question or like decision do you have to make in order to move you out of the P in GPS, out of pain and into peace? So you gauge yourself, where am I heading, pain or peace? Figure out, okay, what decision do I have to make? Like what courageous, bold move do I have to confront to get past this? And then the S, what's the S? You have to go like, I would say like silent. And that's another thing that she's taught me. Like you have to really sit in the silence and surrender to what that next move is. So I would say with the new business that I just launched, it's called Radiance College Consulting, I had to face the question of like, what am I gonna charge for my services? And that was a whole ordeal, because that was linked to my worthiness. What do I think I'm worth? Am I gonna charge $20 an hour? Am I gonna charge 30? Am I gonna charge 100? Am I gonna charge 200? And so when you are faced with putting a number on what your worth is, that was really hard for me to do. And so I had to go through like gauging how I feel, finding out like, okay, what's feeling like peaceful for me right now? Like, what do I have to do? And mine was like, okay, I have to make a decision of what this is. I have a client, what am I gonna tell them? And then sitting in that silence to receive the guidance that the universe, God, is trying to give to you. And I have to give credit to the community of friends and mentors and family that I have. My husband always pushes me, know your worth, like, know your worth, like, know your worth, girl. And so I always have that in my head. And it's like, the worst thing that they could say is no. the worst thing they could do is say, oh no, thank you, I don't want to work with you. And that's fine. But at least I'm going through the exercise of like, okay, I know I'm worth, for example, $55 an hour. Like, how does that feel? So I've had practice with working with different people. So once I got to a higher amount, which my teacher actually from 6th grade, she and I do sort of similar work with helping high school students prepare for college with their college applications and essays and things like that. She referred a client to me, but she told them my rate. And so she went higher than what I ever thought I was going to charge. And she emailed me aside from the client and said, know your worth. And so, yeah, I did it. And so now I have a baseline of what I'm willing to do work for, because I can't stay stuck in what would 19-year-old Angelica charge. Like, I'm 31 now. I've had tons of experience, and even owning that experience and recognizing it, like, that's also like a huge step. So for people that are questioning what they're worth, like, you are worthy. Like, you totally are worthy of everything. And when you are in unworthiness, like, you're blocking all the blessings that are waiting to flow into you. Yeah, so don't block your blessings, because we do that to ourselves. We want to play small, and we're not here to play small. Like, we're here for a reason. We're here for a purpose. Like, there's no mistake that we're here sharing this moment together. Like, there's so much more to come, and there's so much more to life. And if people could just feel comfortable in their own skin, like, that would be, like, I guess my biggest wish for the world is for them to, like, know their worth, feel comfortable with who they are, so they can be free and go out into the world and live their fullest life without being ashamed of anything, without carrying any baggage, without doubting yourself, because that's all self-imposed, and it's coming from outside of us. So if you can just learn to get quiet and go within, there's so many other possibilities that are just waiting to happen.
Oh, so good. So good. So from everything that you've learned and the things that you've implemented, right, to like GPS, for example, how has your life been different? You know, you already touched, you know, based on that, but like how has your life been different after doing those methods of improving, you know, on your definition of success or overcoming voices, imposter syndrome, all of the above?
I would say my health has definitely been one of the things that comes to mind. I have been getting migraine headaches since I was 5 years old, and that would consist of like throwing up, not being able to function. I have to be in a dark room. I have to lay down. I'm usually out for about a day and a half. And after going through this inner work the past 2 years, like, I probably, instead of getting, say, like 2 or 3 migraines a month, I maybe have one like maybe every 2 months, 3 months. So that is like a physical change that I have seen in my body. I used to always have super tense shoulders. I know you used to be in football, so I'm pretty sure my shoulders are probably as big as yours because of all the stress I would carry in this area. And I don't have that anymore. And I'm not getting massages or anything like that. So I would say physically, that's what's been different, is I have less migraines. I'm more relaxed. Yeah, I would say, like, just going back to peace, I just feel more trusting that things happen for a reason. I know that saying, I've always thought that, like, things happen for a reason. And also, when I would get really stressed out, my mom would always tell me, like, God won't ever give you more than you can handle. But, like, I really believe that now. And, like, I know it. So it's not even a belief. It's a knowingness of things will happen when they're supposed to happen. When and where, with who. Like, that's all already planned out for you. So just knowing that really relieves the pressure of having to perform or having to think that I have to be a certain way. It just lets me settle into being more, I would say, confident and trusting that the decisions that I'm making might lead me what I think might be 5 steps backwards, but could propel me to my next, like, greatest moment or next adventure that's ahead. So not judging, I would say non-judgment. of things that happen in my life is also like a byproduct of how I'm different, is not judging things how I used to, like, oh, this is bad or this is good. Like, if you come at it neutral and don't put like a story to it or a meaning to it, like, it's just so freeing and liberating. And I just never thought that there was an alternative. And I feel like I'm living that alternative. And it might not be in the traditional sense that people might think is successful. Like, I'm back here at home. This is my childhood home. I know that, and this isn't the majority of people, but when I've shared with some people, oh yeah, I'm living with my parents, they go, ooh, like, what? And so not having to feel bad about that. Like, I don't feel bad about that. Like, now I could choose to see it as a blessing. Like, I am blessed that my parents are willing to bring me and my husband back in to support us while I'm launching a business. And while my husband's working, like, they're both supporting me. And like, why should I ever be ashamed of that or see that as like a failure, how I would used to maybe think about that? Like, it's a totally different mindset. It's a totally different perspective. But I think what people should know is that you have power over that perspective, but it does take some practice. It does. So just trying to change like your negative thoughts into positive ones. Like, if you need to write a sticky note down and put it on your mirror, like, go ahead and do that. But you do need to give voice to that and like proclaim that. And there is this manifesto that my coach has created called the Freedom Manifesto. And if you don't mind, I'll probably recite some of it. I hope I don't butcher it. But I know that like having that printed out and like signing it and like committing, like, okay, like, I'm making this decision to live free. Like, it's an active decision that you have to hold yourself accountable to. So it goes, from this day forward, I choose to live free. I will no longer behave in ways that enslave. Releasing my former self to become the true me, I am worthy. And that's just the first paragraph. There's like 3 other paragraphs after that. But she's the one, Stephanie Chick is the one who created that and like got me on my quote unquote freedom journey. Like, there's this whole other life that I want to live, that I want to have. And it's all possible. You just have to get through your fears, your attachments, any untruth that you're living, and like take courageous, bold moves to get into that space. But it first starts with making that, like, having that awareness, but then making that like proclamation for yourself. It's like, no, like, this is an active choice for me to live life in this way and see life positive and negative, like not being a victim, like being empowered by the things that happen around you and just trusting that things do happen for a reason and you'll end up where you're supposed to be.
So good. That was so nicely put. All right. Got one more for you.
Okay.
So we could wrap it up. What final advice, words of wisdom would you give to someone facing similar challenges that you've faced, or are gonna face?
Mm-hmm. You don't have to go through it alone. Please do not go through this alone, and know that you're not alone. So reach out to a cousin, a friend, a family member. If you just feel like you're really down, it goes back to like what I was saying, like, go to people that celebrate you, not bring you down. Like, just seek out help if you really need it. Like, if you're not in a good space, like, there are people that love you, even though you might not talk to them all the time. Don't ever think like you're bothering someone. Do not ever think like you're bothering someone. If you have a question, if you need advice, if you just need a vent, there's always going to be someone there that's there for you. And whoever's watching this, like, I will be that person for you. If you ever need it, we might not know each other, but like, I know the power of community, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my community, for where I'm at in my life and the space that I'm in. And so the least I could do is just give that back to someone and be that person that they can call. So I don't mind giving out my information. So yeah, I would say don't do it alone, and know that you are enough just the way you are. Yeah, and you're worthy. Don't ever forget that you're worthy. So just silence those voices, give yourself positive affirmations, and you're going to be fine. Know that you are going to be fine. You're not, it seems like it could be life or death sometimes, and there's no other option, but you're going to be just fine.